Item number 19, 289 13BZ, 473 541 6th Street, Brooklyn.
It's the application for New York Methodist. I thought they gave a very full and rigorous response to a series of issues that we had raised, as well as testimony that we heard at the last hearing. They provided, I think some of it's technical, they provided a new DOB objection for the rear yard. As a result of that, they also revised their as-of-right proposal, both in terms of their statement, facts and findings, as well as in their EAS to now analyze the slightly smaller building. I think they provided much more detail on the programmatic needs, both in terms of the drawings and actually showing what spaces are allocated for what institutes and fields of medicine. They provided us with the supporting historical data, which talks about the trends in terms of how this hospital has changed over time and how the ambulatory patient care has become much more critical. They have also looked at lesser alternatives, including the board's recommendation of further cutting back in the contextual districts, which is the R7A and R6B. In their first go-around, they actually set it back to make those areas compliant, but they claimed it didn't work. And more recently, they've come up with a proposal which is to make the area within the R7A completely compliant and within the R6B just much more contextual and compatible with the context. They have a setback now on the fourth floor, and they've also set back their building, the bulk of the building, by 40 feet from the lot line. And I really think that has helped a lot in the design and the potential effects it has on on 5th Street. They also provided us an alternative, which was for the garage, and whether they could build over the garage, at least to the 5 stories, where the garage allows you to expand. And I thought they made a very rational explanation as to why that wouldn't work. I think you have a very unusual site footprint where you can develop. And you have a building that is already a U-shaped, and I think with this wing to the other side on 5th Street is, at least to me, seems an incredibly inefficient building. Whether it's one building or it's 2 buildings, it does, I think, cause real problems for where you put the core and how you access the site and make it seamless. And I think what happens is that either you have to build in the R7A and have a different shaped building, or you build in and have that portion in above the garage. But I think it doesn't, in that instant, really lessen the bulk within the R6B. So I know, Commissioner Montanez, you had a lot of concerns about this.
Right, and, I think one of the opposition letters had to do with building over the garage with a rear yard waiver, which, it does give you a big floor plate. And even if it was used for parking and it liberated some of the space in the subcellars to put either mechanicals or some program, I still have a little bit of trouble understanding why they have all these restricted pathways between the 2 buildings. I can understand the central core and the 2 wings, but even if it's just support activities or parking, I still feel and in terms of cost, the foundation is there, and do they have another plan for that parcel in the future? It's just a little confusing to me, because I think it would actually save in costs.
Okay. Other comments? I didn't have any issues with this. I thought it was very well argued. But we can ask them to explain that, of course. Yes, any? Yes.
No, I found it very informative. It filled out the argument to me as to why it would be difficult to stretch the building out over the garage with the connectivity issues, especially considering you've got so much sterile space, and how would you get over the sterile space, single core and having to go back and forth. I was convinced.
Okay. Other comments on that? All right. They also provided us with this the streetscape, which I think was very helpful. I know
It's
Commissioner.
extremely helpful. I really now have a good sense of exactly how this new structure fits in with the rest of the landscape. And it was very helpful for me to understand. And indeed, I thought this submission was very responsive to the comments that we had. And I think that it's far more generous now to the street. And I think that was very important. So I don't have any more issues at this moment.
All right. They provided us with the traffic study that they provided to the community board. They did look at the existing condition. It was really to analyze the impacts on the school. And I think there are a couple of things that they laid out over there which seem very sensible to me. One is that really a lot of the traffic is actually on 6th Street and not on 5th Street. They did look at trucks as well. And they talked about the peak periods in terms of traffic on 5th Street and how that dovetails with the peak periods of the school. And it seems that the real issue is in the morning time, and they talked about the fact that the traffic on 5th Street for the ambulatory care center is going to primarily be employees and not really the patients that have a peak that's much later, and in fact have a peak which is not at the time of the peak of the school. I think it'd be helpful for New York Methodist to just outline some of not conditions, but some of the things that they said they would do in order to alleviate traffic. I know they talked about monitors, and if they could just outline how they're planning to do that vis-a-vis, particularly the servicing on 5th Street, given that we have a loading dock over there, and there were concerns raised not only at the last hearing, but also from the PTA regarding traffic and how it'll be mitigated. I'm sure they could come up with a plan. Other issues that the PTA had to do with just making sure that they coordinate with the school on any kind of changes, and I'm sure New York Methodist could easily satisfy that. They also provided us with an EAS that's been revised. There are issues regarding air quality and noise that they're working on, and I think those, my feeling is that those issues will be resolved ultimately, both during the construction period and also afterwards, which was raised by the PDA.
I have some
Yes.
concerns about the construction period.
Okay.
I know there's something in the EAS, but if they could outline, because I think that's going to be a very significant impact on the neighborhood in the near future.
Okay.
And I guess the construction period is over 2 years. So if they could explain how they're going to mitigate those issues.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?